Ladies and gentlemen, I am your pal Mike Squires, and this is the Couchress Podcast. Welcome to the Couchress Podcast, episode number 265. 265. And my guest is a man whose name I am sure to fuck up, but I'm going to give it the old college try anyway. I think I got it. His name is Pavel Maciwoda. Now, recently, life has been really great to me lately. I'm so happy to be back in Seattle. I have this amazing studio. I'm collaborating with friends and people who I've admired for a long time, and good fortune has really been smiling upon me as far as how I am spending my time. So I'm really stoked. One of the incredible things that I've gotten to do recently is perform in the opening and perform with Ugly Kid Joe, opening up the residency for the Scorpions in Las Vegas. And it was an incredible full circle. Me and the entire Ugly Kid Joe band, as well as, 70% of Gen X, grew up on Scorpions. So why am I telling you this? Because Pavel is the bass player for Scorpions, and we got on immediately. Day one, walk in the venue, he's up in his dressing room. I kind of poke my head around the corner and say hello to just introduce myself, and he's like, come on inside, sit down, can I get you something to drink? What a dude. And we connected, we hung a bit backstage, and then here the second to last night in Las Vegas, we taped this conversation that you're about to either listen to or watch. And he's such a good bass player. What a great gig. What a great guy. His wife was there, also Aga. Really awesome lady. I don't know what else to tell you, except for I feel extremely fortunate to continue to have really cool, kind, and talented people cross my path and come into my life. So I hope that you enjoy this conversation as much as I enjoyed meeting Pavel and becoming friendly and having this conversation that we captured on audio and video. So, I hope that you do enjoy. And, if you are in Europe, go check out the Scorpions. And man, I what a treat. I really hope that I get to see them again. Really hope that Ugly Kid Joe gets a chance to play some more shows with them. What a time. What a great crew and amazing band. Legends. So, I would be a fool to not invite you to support Couchress Podcast on Patreon. Patreon.com/Couchriffs. That's, there's a lot of elbow grease that went into this space, and the amount of time that goes into all of that is time that is not rewarded financially. All of the content that Couchriffs creates, including the cover songs. I'm about to start doing the play-along things, like the very earliest version of Couchriffs. Again, and inviting guests to come down and sit on the couch and we'll play along together. I have a couple people scheduled already. We just got to get them down here. I think that you'll enjoy. All that stuff is available to everyone for free. And, if you enjoy it and you want to see it continue to grow and thrive and hopefully get, bigger guests, also support the, local Seattle musicians more and more, in addition to big touring acts, please support Couchriffs on Patreon. We need your support in order for that to happen. In order for it's a lot of time time that otherwise would be somewhere else, probably, probably making a lot more money, but a lot more unhappily. So, I appreciate your support. Thank you to everyone that's already supporting. You guys are amazing. And last but not least, don't forget the golden rule. You've heard it 260 times already, 259 times already. This is the 260th time. The golden rule is treat people the way you want to be treated. It's it's not very hard. It's easier than being an asshole. And it spreads a little love in the world. Right now, the world could use a lot more love. So don't be a dick in the world. Pavel,
Mike?
thank you so much and welcome to the Couchers podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very pleased.
I have to say, from the very first moment that we met, you were so friendly and warm. And you and Aga, your wife Aga, invited me into your room, and you just were such a great host and an engaging guy. So
I guess it has something to do with the Bass Bro Pro, I call it BPP, Bass Bro Pro. It's our bass souls which are connecting us, and that's how I see it, And it was lovely to meet you, to talk to you, and here we are.
here we are. We've talked about a lot of stuff, and that first day we were talking, I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I hope that I can talk Pavel into coming to be on the podcast because you had some great stories, and I wanna get into that. You have an interesting history because you grew up in Poland,
Yes.
which through the 70s and 80s, that's a very different time than Poland now, and then moved to New York.
Exactly. It all started when I was around 13 years old. My father was a bass player as well, but he wasn't active anymore. He was a tailor. He enjoyed his work at home. He said he quit traveling with the band because he just didn't like it. He's the homeboy, and he gave me his first bass. It was the old Polish bass with strings high like an upright bass. Since this time I have the muscle here because the bass was so heavy to play, but from the first moment I was so hooked. I wanted to be a pilot. I was already signing for the pilot school in Poland, but he said, "No way, man! You're gonna become an army pilot for the jets." No, because everybody who, teenagers when they were learning how to be pilots, they end up in the communist army. So he said, just play the bass, and I was hooked from the first moment, and he was my first teacher. Then he forced me to do some piano lessons and some theory because I never went to the music school.
Yeah.
And I wish I could treat the piano lessons more seriously, but I was so hooked on the bass that I saw only bass. And his advices were, he was into jazz music, and he said, "Don't play that British, big, stupid music. Play like Jaco Pastorius." So I started on the high note, and I started listening to fusion jazz rock bands, including Weather Report with Jaco and other ones, and that was my first influence, and so that was great, and I remember my first shows were actually in the church, Catholic church. My grandmother used to be very ultra Catholic, and I spent lots of hours in the church as a serving boy. And every Sunday we had this quasi electric acoustic mess, and we could play music on the top. Where you have organs.
Yeah.
And I remember those beautiful moments when we used to rehearse in the church, empty church, dark. And after rehearsals, everybody left. I was alone, but I afraid touch the organs. I wanted to play, but I had no idea. And but I remember when I was alone in the church and I was walking out, I had those big keys to lock the church and give the keys back. It was quite interesting. At the same time, I that was before war state in Poland, which was in 1980, and I also start playing with a rock band called Poziom 5, Level 5, because the city I'm coming from has a salt mine, beautiful museum of old salt digging miners, and absolutely astonishing place. It's on the list of UNESCO wonders of the world, and that's why we call level 5 was the lowest level in the salt mine. And we were influenced very much so by bands like Yes, progressive rock, and Jethro Tull and King Crimson, Rush. So that was my first influences. On one side was a jazz, on another side was a progressive rock.
The two go hand in hand, though. It seems like a natural progression to go to prog rock from jazz background, yeah?
Yes, and I'm a Pisces, and I always had those two Pavels inside me, and luckily over the years of my career, I had a chance to play with the best musicians from the jazz scene and from the rock scene.
Right.
So it's great.
So, how long were you gigging in Poland before you decided to leave? And so your first gigs, your first performances were in the church. Where were your first prog rock gigs?
One of the first gigs were at the school. We had this nice gig. We played some rock covers of Polish bands and some originals. I remember that. And another first show was on the garden sites. People have like the garden yards, and there was a little stage over there. And I remember that first show. I had this small motorcycle. It's called little scooter. I remember I took my bass under my arm and I drove it to the gig. We played a gig, and the guitar player broke his guitar on that gig, I remember, and he threw at the people, so they were collecting the neck and the body and the strings, it was a punky gig, and I remember driving back home from the gig. I was like, oh my God, that's some people show up, and we had a great welcome and the energy performing solo. I mean, performing live. It just blew me away, and I was driving, super happy at home. I was like, I knew that this is what I want to do in my life. It was just wonderful experience. And then we had a steady rehearsals with this band, level 5, and then very quickly there was not so much competition around my town and Krakow, southern Poland. I made a very quick progress. I was practicing like 10 hours a day, so my chops were good enough, and I got hooked up with this band called Little Egoist. It was a fusion jazz rock band from Krakow, which members of the band, they were older guys, from me, like at least 10, 15 years older than me, professional musicians. And I got this gig. What was good about this gig, we traveled to West Europe. That time, I grew up in communist Poland, and we had gigs in West Germany, Switzerland, Austria, and that was an amazing experience crossing the gate between East and West Europe, and seeing all the colors in the West Europe and the clean bathrooms with toilet paper in, which you couldn't find out in Poland at all. It was a shock, all these details, and we had a great welcomes. We played the small clubs in West Germany, Switzerland, and Austria, and we had a very great welcome. They loved us, and And I start making money, pretty serious money, because we made money in the foreigner currency, and when you switch to Polish money, that I made more money per one gig than my mother made working 1 month.
Wow.
So so that was a very important experience to me. And then a few years later, I got the proposition from the another jazz rock band in Poland. Walk Away was the name of the band, and they were students of the music school, very professional musicians, and we traveled all around Poland as well Europe, and we're one time we're like announced as the best jazz rock band in Poland by the magazine Jazz Forum, and we did very well. We did very well, and that brings me to 1988 Jazz Jamboree Festival in Warsaw, Poland, when Miles Davis came with his group. I saw two sets of the show, and at that show, I decide I'm gonna leave Poland because I felt so much in love with American music that I said I'm gonna leave. I need to experience that American groove. And after the Jazz Jamboree show, Miles Davis musicians show up to the jazz club Remont in Warsaw, where when we were hosting the Walkaway band was hosting a jam session.
Mm-hmm.
And musicians from Miles Davis band came in. Benny Redfield, now he's with Santana, bass player. He took my bass. Adam Holtzman, pianist, the musical director of Miles Davis band that time. Marlene Mazur played drums, but she played percussion with Miles Davis. Also on the backstage was Michael Petrucciani, rest in peace, absolutely genius jazz pianist, but he didn't play that night. And I was sitting behind Adams Holtzman back when he played piano, and once again I knew that I have to leave Poland for United States. And back in 1990, I packed my bass, I packed my little Gallian Krieger amp and suitcase, and I went off to States with another Polish band. We had some gigs in Polish community in Chicago, and we were supposed to have a record deal in Orlando, but that didn't happen. And that's how my American story part begins.
So I have some questions for you.
Of course.
It's a pretty unique opportunity that you had to be able to cross over to the West. Yeah?
Oh yeah, that was absolutely. Also, there was a funny story with passport because I was 18 years old already gigging and making money, but you had to go to army. So I didn't go to the college, which allowed you to escape the army. You must go to army in communist Poland. So I escaped to mental hospital. I spent 6 months in the mental hospital pretending that I'm mentally sick.
You and Ted Nugent.
I was like, and you know what? The chief doctor, the lady, she's already passed away. She knew that I'm a musician, and she was helping lots of artists to hide away. I wasn't on the drugs at the hospital because she knew that. So I was kind of on special, position over there. But it was like a cuckoo's flying over the cuckoo's nest movie. It was exactly the same trip, and I thought maybe it's something wrong with my mental health. But when I saw really sick people, mentally sick, I was like, well, everything is fine with me. There's no worries about this because seeing all those schizophrenics and alcoholics in hospital was pretty sad. So that was a great life lesson about sometimes how mind can go out of control. And but thanks to this situation, I walked my passport out, so I was legally allowed to travel to West Europe. It was pretty tough, but I had my passport and we were gigging constantly.
The Cold War was a terrifying time. I had nightmares about a nuclear attack for years into adulthood, long after the wall came down, recurring uh, dreams. And, you know, uh, i- Americans were, or we would get a lot of information about how, you know, like it's good guys, bad guys, us and them. And I imagine you also got good guy, bad guy information.
Of course.
Were you scared to travel into West Germany and into the, like, go through the security gates and see what was on the other side?
Thank God, the guys who I played with, they were tough guys, and there was so much propaganda in Poland that time, communist propaganda, but all musicians, all, artists, they were completely against,
Sure.
against this whole system. They were laughing. We were making really funny movements with police or whatever. It just that we didn't care, it was great. We were on the mission. We got to play. The worst parts were crossing the borders when they said take all the equipment out of the car. Man, that was taking lots of time, and they were checking, the amps if we're not smuggling anything over there and stuff like that, because that was their job, and it was a pain in the ass because. Leaving Poland, you had to take all the shit out. Then, entering Germany, sometimes they told you to take the shit again. so,
Sure.
so that was the hardest part. But driving through that field of nobody's land, it was strange. Similar experience I had with Scorpions when we visit Korea. We played Seoul a few times, and they took us to the border of northern and
Wow.
South Korea. So I knew that. I knew that
Sure.
it was the same vibe, pretty strict, pretty military controlled, and
And
no
they were
joke.
all familiar with that as well,
Yeah, all
because they traveled
minefield
on the
and
other side.
yeah.
Wow, it's so wild.
So I experienced that, and when the solidarity came back in 1980, 80 or 81, General Jaruzelski announced the war state, and they closed everything. And I remember we were supposed to have a rehearsal. I was so pumped out that we're gonna play, and the venue where we were rehearsing was closed. I was so pissed. I was kicking the doors. Like, you fucking assholes! We can't play. So we were spending time at home listening to vinyls, and that was also a great time. No cell phones. We had a police hour, so if you stayed over 7 p.m., so we had to stay all night long listening to the records, and that was a beautiful experience. Candles, listening to the vinyls and socialize. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful time.
You said you moved to the States in 1990. That's before the wall came down. On that trip, did you just say, I'm going to stick around? You jump ship, or?
Yeah, but I was ready. I didn't care. I know there's some changes in Europe will probably do very well, but I didn't care. I was set for USA, and when I arrived to USA with Polish band, the first year I was with this Polish band, and we were in Orlando, Florida, and Chicago. So I had a chance to, see the vibe, of two different states, completely different, and that's how it started. And when I left this Polish band, I came back to Florida because I felt good. I felt like it's a good state, and I was living on the couch of this girl, and finally she gets so tired of me. She said, "Well, you are a good bass player. Why don't you do some auditions?" And you know what happened? I auditioned. I announced that I'm looking for a gig, and you know who showed up for my audition? Jen Zimmerman from Jenny Tortures. And she said, "Oh, well, you play good." I played some stuff in the living room for her. Okay, you are in the band, and that's
Like
and
that.
imagine, me, some guy from Poland, being in Jenny Torches, the first lineup of the Jenny Torches, and that was a absolutely American deepest experience I could ever have. And she was very cool. Jen, that time, I was homeless basically, so I also stayed in her house for a month. All dark walls everywhere,
Right.
black. And she worked that time at the emergency for the eye transplantation. So she went to the accidents, and they were taking eyes from the dead people.
Wow.
Maybe that's how her music was so tough, and strong. And then we had a tour with opening for Guar. So I was introduced to underground, American hardcore music.
So wait a minute. So how long had you been in Florida uh, before you were in the Genitortures, and how how was your English at this time, and how long had you been doing it before you were all of a sudden on tour with Guar? Because it's a steep trajectory. That's incredible.
Right. The first time with this Polish band was around like 6 months in Florida, then 6 months in Chicago. Then I came back. It was like a year in Orlando. So my English was horrible that time. My first daytime job, because Jen said, well, you have to get a job, because I can't afford you. And so my first job was a dishwashing man, and at the restaurant. And I bought my first car. It was a Ford Maverick, a fantastic car. I was so happy. I saved up some money as a dishwasher guy, and there was a great also ego lesson, because in Poland I never had to work. I had no idea what is the daytime job. I made money since I was 16, 17 years old playing music.
Right.
And here in America, I faced the wall, "Oh, come on, you have to have daytime jobs." And that was a great ego lesson. And so I continue working and playing with Johnny Torches. And after a year, I missed New York. I knew that I have to be in New York, because this is where the music scene was. This is where everybody were. And if you make it in New York City, you make it everywhere.
That's true. Had you toured through New York by that point, or was it just a target on the map for you?
So when I left Florida, I was pretty broke. I got this $100 from a friend of mine, and I bought a Greyhound ticket from Orlando to New York City. I I came to 42nd Street bus stop, and I was in shock. New York City, it's a tough place. But I had some Polish friends in East Village, East Fifth Street, between Avenue A and B, and they said you can stay with us. So I end up on the East Fifth Street, East Village. Back in 90, there was 91 or 92, something like that.
Okay.
And then New York City story start. That was cool of life. So my first gig in New York City, I spent the last $100 for the mouse battery amplifier,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't have money to go to the subway, so I jumped over the fences, and I didn't get stopped, and I start playing on that mouse amplifier on the platform, and that's how I start making my first bucks. I was completely broke. The funny thing is, I didn't know when the subway comes in, it will blow all your money out of the case. And people were so nice; they actually collect the money and they put it back. So I made a bigger kind of a head, so the money wouldn't flow away. And I kept playing, right? So I make like $5 an hour or something, maybe sometimes more, sometimes less. And I've met few musicians because they came to me. Oh, you sounded good. I had a little delay and I was jamming with the delay. thing. I had few good chops, and they left me some cards. Call me. We're gonna, So from Subway, I met some other guys, some other musicians in New York City, and I met this guy Ratcon and Dave Schlasberg, a drummer, and Ratcon is a guitar player, and he had a gasoline transformer, so we could have amps, and we had a car, and we drove all around the city. We used to set up by the World Trade Center. There was a nice little park. People were taking a lunch break, and we were playing covers and Chili Peppers, Hendrix, and everything, and we were making $20 an hour each. It was great, and we set up at the Columbus Circle and different spots in New York City. Sometimes we didn't even start playing because police came and said, "Oh, you have to get out of here." So we had those situations, but that was my second gig. Then I met some other people and I started playing in the clubs. That time, back in 90s, New York City was very active with clubs, and then Lynch's, Blues, and Bleecker Street, and I was always over there jamming, meeting people, and that's how I started.
It sounds like you did not have to have a day gig in New York.
Well, I was trying, and after a while, I met some blues guys. I was really enjoying the blues gigs, playing all over the town, mostly East and West Village, sometimes uptown, depends, and I had several blues bands over there, and whatever was available, I was the last minute call guy, right? Oh, can you do the gig tonight? Yeah, of course. I show up and we play. And after a while, this drummer Peter Lewis, who I met, somewhere in New York, he said, "Well, I just contact Adam Holtzman, the guy who was sitting behind the back in Warsaw." He said he wants to play. And can you imagine? I'm coming to the rehearsal room like this, and there's Adam Holtzman, and I'm like, "Wait a second. The dreams are fucking coming true." And we start playing, and I learned the whole record of the solo record of Adam Holtzman. I learned every song. He had such a great musicians on the record, so I was kind of prepared to play with him. But we did the originals, and we had a band called Section 31 with Adam, and we were gigging all over the town.
You went from level 5 to Section 31.
So Section 31, Adam came with this name because the Section 31 was a section of Area 51 with all the secrets. He's very into this stuff, like me, and that was one of the best experiences in my life. We also record some music, but unfortunately we never released that music. Hopefully we can release somehow in future. We had a trumpet player, Todd Horton, and actually, there was a 4-piece: Adam, me, Todd Horton on trumpet, and Peter Lewis on drums. And New York City situation. I'm walking on Broadway with my bass, and there's this black guy coming to me, and he's asking, "Hey, you play bass? You play jazz?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm trying to. Come to my house. You buy me pack of cigarettes. I show you how to play jazz." And became he was Bruce Johnson, a guitar player who used to play with Gil's Evans Orchestra, and through him I've met Miles Evans, Gil's Evans' son. We got friendly together, and he was inviting me to his apartment, Gil's Evans' apartment, and once he pulled up the charts, handwritten by Gil's Evans.
Wow.
And man, I was with Miles Evans trying to read. I was never a good reader, but I was practicing, and we played together also. We had a gig with Miles Evans as well. That went very well. I also met the top jazz players in the scene, and that was a super important lesson to me and experience, and lots of other ones which I can keep talking about.
So in a matter of like 4 years, you left Poland, bounced between two cities, and landed eventually in New York. And all of a sudden, all of these incredible things are happening. What's going through your head? You must have felt you're so far from your old home and your old life.
Well, I have to also mention that I extend my visa illegally, so I became illegal alien in United States. That means I was really stranded in New York. I couldn't leave the country. Uh, one I lost a good gig with John Malkerin, trumpet player from Defunct band. He had his own
Oh,
band, funky band. I don't remember the name, but I was auditioning for them. They liked me, but second question was, do you have a passport? Can you travel to Europe? I'm like, oh shit, I can't go with you on to Europe because I was so much into funk music that time. The funk scene and the groove in New York City was just killing me. I was like, I wanna play. T.M. Stevens. We went to see him jamming in the club upstate, uptown. And, I was meeting all those guys. And I met Will Calhoun from Living Color. I played the gig at CBGB. We were opening for Living Color.
did you
And
go
I
see
asked,
Medeski, Martin and Wood?
excuse me?
Medeski, Martin and Wood, did you see?
I never met them, but I know the music very well. I
Yeah.
love them. I love
Yeah.
them. I listen to the music, and I was always shocked how good they are, and it was a sick stuff they played, and there was lots of, great bands in New York City, and I was, also my good connection was Michael Urbaniak. Is a Polish violinist. He was very successful in the United States. He came to New York back in 70s, and I was living in his studio for a while too, and I had a chance to be part of the Urbanator One, his first record with Herbie Hancock, with Al McDowell on bass, and
Wow.
Randy and Michael Brecker, and Lenny White. Lenny White was recording me and one song, which I'm in one song on that. He's like, "Come on, play like Stanley." So I was slapping over there, and he came very good, And Lenny White, such a great drummer. Another New York City story is like when I played on the streets, I was making money. I set up. I didn't know. I saw so many people, young people. So I didn't know. I set up across from the music school on Fifth Avenue. So I keep playing, and this guy comes over to me, and he introduced himself. He says, "I'm Bernard Purdy." I had no idea who's Bernard Purdy. I'm sorry, but I'm Polish, and I was still discovering American music. And Bernard Purdy says, "Well, I'm teaching the kids across, across here the school. Why don't you come and we show them what is the groove all about?" So I came to his class, and he said, "Here's the amp, plug it in, play the shit you played just across the street. And this is the lesson about the groove. The groove is something what you cannot explain." And me playing with Bernard Purdy at his class in front of those kids, I was like, wait a second. But, I was into it, and everything went so smoothly. He was smiling, playing. When we finished, he said, "You see, that's what we call groove. You cannot explain. It's just happening." And, I remember I also enjoy a lot the drummers who played for the breakdancers.
Yeah.
They were doing this. So sometimes I went to them and I asked them, can I jam with you? They said, okay, come on. So I was sometimes playing with those drummers for breakdancers. They were fucking in the pocket. They were killing it. It was amazing.
At what point did you learn about who Bernard was?
Well,
Because he is the shuffle master.
Well, I tell you what, many years later, I was like, wait a second, because I really enjoy watching his YouTube movies. I watch it just to make myself feel good and happy when he shows the Bernard Purdy shuffle, which I learned how to play on the drums and all this stuff. I just love the guy, and I'm so fortunate that something like this happened to me.
I wonder if you could reach out to the school if there's archival footage of his clinic. because I wouldn't be shocked. And how incredible would it be for you to get to see that
Right.
footage?
Maybe it was better that I knew who he was because I would probably get stressed and didn't play so well.
No
So I was
doubt.
like, okay, fine. I love, funk. I love black music. Sorry, I don't know if it's correct to say black these days. I don't care. It's just,
You grew up in Poland. I have a hard time imagining there were a lot of black musicians, let alone black
not many.
citizens in
That's
Poland.
why, when I start going to Just Jamboree Festival, when I saw Art Ensemble of Chicago and Wayne Shorter and John Scofield with Gary Granger on bass.
Yeah.
Oh my God. We were fucking blown away by this music, but by the groove, by the way they playing. We were all trying, play like American music, but we had those our twists, so it was good too. But Ricky Wellman, the drummer from Miles Davis band, he was so funky. The Philly groove, the hip hoppy, swing
Yeah.
stuff. Oh my God, that was sick. That was sick, and that's why that was the voodoo. That was the magic of it. This is why I left the country, and being a legal alien also forced me to do more, daytime jobs in New York City. Illegal jobs were very hard. I was a Mexican delivery boy for Mexican food on the bicycle in the West Village and stuff like that. So, I had to do some kind of a work to support myself.
It's hard to make it in New York, and it's always been hard. Was there a- was there ever a time you said you were stranded in America, but technically you wouldn't have been. You could have gone home, but you couldn't come back then, right?
Exactly, and I was really afraid of it, and I didn't want to lose that time in America. But I finally got my green card, and I got a legal job driving trucks. I was a truck driver, 18-wheeler driver for 5 years. That was my daytime job, and
Wow.
I remember that nice picture I found somewhere in the back of the truck in the dirt. Somebody draw think I would rather be home playing my bass. So I was laughing. That's supposed to be my, solo record cover. And I spent so many hours in traffic. I was so frustrated because I wanted to play full time, but I couldn't. And the trucking job was taking many hours, like 16, 18 hours every day. But I still was gigging, doing some blues gigs at night, and never got enough sleep. But I maintain, keep on playing.
That's a pretty rough introduction to the life of being an
Yeah,
American
yeah. I
musician.
call this period the school of life. Because I had to, put my ego on the side, keep on playing and keep on working. At the same time, I learn about what is hard work, and actually made probably my playing better because you have more appreciation once you're on stage because you know you appreciate this more because then you have to go back to the daytime job and it's a different story. So that was a great lesson.
Did you drive a truck all the way up to the point when you moved back to Poland? And what was the catalyst for you moving back?
No, after driving a truck, I got a better job at the internet company. I was doing the graphics on the Macintosh, making images for the websites, and there was a very nice job too. The funny thing is that the chief of our group was a keyboard player, and we had a band also playing some fusion music, some
Mm.
playing some covers by Marcus Miller and some other stuff, and we were also doing some gigs around. Uh, I don't remember the name of the band, but it was fun, man. It was fun. So music was basically everywhere. Even in my internet company, I had a band.
What was the catalyst for you going back to Poland?
Well, back in '98. there was two guys from the Polish hard rock band TSA, which is kind of like Scorpions, but Polish band,
Mm-hmm.
singing in Polish. The lead singer and guitar player were based. Guitar player was based off New Jersey, and singer was based off Brooklyn. They didn't like each other, so I was a connector between them. I call, between them, trying to establish the rehearsals and prepare the band, because we had a propositions to go back to Poland and play some shows. So that was convenient, because my driving company was based off New Jersey, Newark, and the guitar player lived a few miles from Newark. So I visit him very often. I pull out my truck, and we were talking, and we got an American drummer, Dwayne Cleveland, friend of mine, who I was playing in New York in a band called Anti-Up, and we set up a band, and we went back to Poland, and back in '96. So after 6 years in United States, I was able go back to Poland, and I fell in love back with my country. When I came back home, I knew that sooner or later, New York City was kicking my ass. I had enough, and took another 4 years or 5 years for me to get out of the New York City. It was hard to get out of New York. I'm telling
It's
you.
hard to get in, and it is hard to get out.
Yes.
Tell me about the gigs that you did with TSA in Poland. It must have been pretty
So-
incredible to
so
your
T-
return home, but also just the emotional feeling. It was a popular band.
Yes, the band started back in '80s, so they had a huge history already. I was a teenager when they already were famous, so I wasn't an original bass player, but that gig, we went to Sopot, northern Poland by the Baltic Sea. We had a huge gig at the mall. There was like many thousand of people at the show. It was almost successful show, but because unfortunately guitar player, rest in peace, Andrzej Nowak, was a little bit, he had too much to drink, but we managed through that show. We had a great welcome, and then we came back again to Poland like a year later for a few more shows, and I was already hooked to go back to Poland, and this is how my American period was slowly ending.
Yeah. Do you miss New York ever?
Not much, every time I visit New York City, the good thing is, I remember being so broke in New York City. Finally, I saved up $20 and I went to see Rush, Roll the Bones tour in Madison Square Garden. And, I was crying the whole show, and I was like, I want to be on the stage. I want to play bass with the famous rock band. And that was, I guess, next step, which will come in a few years later on. And I was just, super amazed by Geddy Lee and the Rush, and everybody were doing the drum fills with Neil Peart, and it was just magical. And years later, I end up with Scorpions twice on Madison Square Garden stage, and I kissed the stage. I was like, thank you, God. Thank you for this opportunity to play in one of the best stages on earth, and I'm very fortunate. Very fortunate. Only one Polish guy played Madison Square Garden. There was Artur Rubinstein, classical pianist, back in 30s, I believe that was. And I'm the second Polish guy who had a chance to play in Madison Square Garden. So that's quite important. It's like telling New York City, I got you, I gotcha.
What a triumphant return to New York.
It is. I was, instead being broke, walking around hungry of New York City streets, we were staying in the 5-star hotels uptown, midtown, New York, and I felt like a king. It was a good feeling.
Let's talk about getting back to Poland and the time leading up to getting the Scorpions gig. And I want to talk about that also.
Of course.
But when you got when you decided, okay, now's the time, you go back. How, like how did that feel? I imagine a relief.
I was very lucky because coming back from United States, I got the gig with another famous Polish rock band called Oddział Zamknięty. So I jumped in right into the gigging band. We were traveling all around the Poland in summer times, playing shows all over the Poland. So I was in heaven. I was in heaven, and it was great, you know. So first year and a half after coming back in 2001 to Poland, I was playing with Oddział Zamknięty. Unfortunately, I had to leave the band because I couldn't take the drinking, and it was too much for me. And I said, "I'm sorry, guys, I can't take it." They were really party boys and good guys, very good guys.
Were you
But,
still drinking at the time?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
a lot, and I just couldn't take it anymore. So I quit the band, and this is where the dump came in. And I was gigging around Krakow, doing some club gigs with different musicians. I was a session player here, over there, whatever was available. I had a band called LAPD, and there was an Irish singer, Liam McMurray, and Arthur Malik on drums, and me. There was a trio, and I've done some other shows with some other people, making some recordings. Also, the funk band called Funk the Night, and that was also good. We had a chance to play some my tunes, and I just start praying to God. I said, God, what the fuck is going on? I mean, I'm struggling for over 30 years, and I have a talent. Please do something. I was really sending message to the universe, to the Creator, and once I'm sitting eating some cheap soup in the square in Krakow, and I'm receiving the call. Here's the Scorpions want to audition you. I'm like, it's a fucking joke or what? I didn't take it seriously. But the leader of Oddział Zamknięty, the band who I came straight from USA to Poland, recommend me. And I got called for the audition. I didn't have enough money to get from Krakow to Hanover, so there's this Polish company helped me to organize a car from Szczecin to Hanover, which is northern Poland. I took a train from Krakow to Szczecin, and they gave me a car to Hanover for audition and back. The first audition went very well. I prepared myself. When I was learning Scorpions songs, it felt so familiar to TSA and Oddział Zamknięty. It was the same style, so I felt very comfortable, and I knew that's my life chance. I knew that this is my gig. So I went there. I was very calm. The audition was very easy. They were working on new songs for upcoming album called Unbreakable. I played few songs in the studio. I already had some experience, so it was fast. I brought my white Music Man Stingray bass 5-string, and Matthias later on interviews, he said, we took Pavel because he sounded octave lower than other bass players. And he said, bring the bass when you come back for the recording. We're going to call you back. They did call me back in the fall of 2003. We were working on the album Unbreakable in Peppermint Studio in Hanover. And in 2004, I was announced as officially new bass player of the Scorpions.
20 years.
Yes.
How did that feel?
Well, first of all, I need that band. I was waiting all my life for this gig to happen, and we got together very well. I remember the first rehearsal before the first show. We didn't even went through the whole set because the boys had to do interviews, and they said, "Oh, okay, we cut off the half of the rehearsal. Oh, you got it. We have to do the interviews." So we didn't even went through the first set. And that time, James Kotak, rest in peace, he became my buddy. my friend, a very close friend, he was helping me a lot in the beginning with tips, how to, because the first show when I did, I was in shock. We played very well, but I wasn't aware of the stage movement.
Sure.
That you have to move here, here. So James was tipping me with this, oh, do this, do that. When Rudolph is on the left, you go to the right. When he's on the left, you go there. In this song, we go all together on the left side. In this song, we go all together to the right side. Stuff like that, and we connected right away, and I already had lots of experience, and the rhythm, me and James, we were locked in right away in the studio while we were recording. We knew already sounds good, and life was the same. So, and that's how I started, and it's been 20 years. Amazing, right?
And how your life in Poland, how much has it changed since the Scorpions gig came into your life?
Well, I have to tell you, over the years, playing with famous Polish bands and playing with famous musicians, the biggest problem was my ego, because joining Scorpions, when you go on stage, when you have a big applause, and you are with the biggest band on earth, your ego grows up. That time I was a heavy drinker, and drinking and ego go very well together. I mean, ego going into wrong direction. So I thought I'm a big shit. It was a fake one. Took me 13 years before I realized that going into drugs and alcohol, it's a horrible way. And I was very fortunate to stop it, thanks to my wife, Aga, who is totally straight. And when I've met her and when we start dating and then we got married, it was much easier for me to clean myself up. And this is, I think, my biggest success, to maintain sobriety, maintain, good performing, because we as musicians, we are antennas, right? So if you're not so straight, you're not transforming the energy in the right way. And being straight, it's much more powerful. And right now I'm fully enjoying myself with the ego in the right place. You can't really beat that. I'm when I was drinking, my self-esteem was very weak. I had many problems with myself. Sometimes I was very shy on stage. I wanted to hide, but you can't. We have spotlights all the time.
That's
It's
right.
like, no, I want to hide, but there's no way to hide. And many situations. Also, working with Scorpions, it's 9 months every year on tour. I lost my mother being on tour. I lost my father being on tour. I mean, the life goes by, and you are on tour all the time. It's very intense. Some people don't realize how big price you have to pay for the success. We are really enjoying what we are doing with Scorpions. We are very fortunate to be such a worldwide band, and but it takes big price, big sacrifice. But that's how it is, that's what it is.
When you're drinking, your ego will tell you that your antenna is working great, right?
Yes.
But your ability to really understand what's happening around you is hindered. But when you're sober, you are much more in tune and aware of what's going on around you.
Oh yes, emotionally, first of all, I was very unstable. Many times I cried behind the stage. I still cry when I get excited, and when you feel the energy. And I remember when every time we played Holiday, I was off the stage because it was an acoustic version without no bass. I just cried my ass off, and I wasn't shy about this because it was a great relief of emotions, which right now I can control much better. I don't go so extreme, because when you're drugging or drinking, you go super high, but then the lows are completely depressing, and it's very hard, you know, being on stage, performing, being, all applaud and stuff, and then you end up in the room by yourself, and if you cannot deal with yourself, with being in peace with yourself, what you supposed to do? So I used to get out, party, making a mess, and then feeling even worse, and that's not the way. Now I'm maintaining much better, healthier life. I'm 58, and you have to start take care of your health and your mental management, I would say.
Yeah. I talk about the excuse me. I talk about the pendulum a lot. You're touring, you're feeling high, you come home, and all of a sudden, the schedule, your day to day, comes to a screeching halt, and you're focused on your purpose that the purpose that you focused your life on while you're on tour. Then you get home, and all of a sudden, you can feel a little aimless, like a boat without a rudder, right?
Absolutely.
How do you how do you cope with that those breaks?
Yes. Well, my biggest problem was that I didn't have family before I started the family, and coming back home with no grounding was very depressing. So I kept partying and getting more out of balance. And since I've met my wife Aga, my legacy, my priorities change. Before, my priority was music. Right now, my priority is family. I don't care about music as much as I used to, because I know that having family is more important than music career. And thank God, my family supports me with my musical career, so there's no conflict, because many times in my career I've met musicians who unfortunately met women who said me or music, and they had to quit music, for
Right.
family. In my case, in the beginning, that didn't happen because I was so committed to music that nothing else mattered. But since I got married, things changed, the priorities changed, the legacy is different right now. So last night I was watching movie with Ethan Hawke. I don't remember the name, but it was a very good movie about. He was doing research about some strange, satanistic killings.
Mm-hmm.
And his wife, he had a hard talk with his wife, and she said, "Your legacy is not writing books about this. Your legacy, it's family, it's your children." And this is actually a good answer to this question. I'm grounded now because I have a fantastic family that keeps me going, and I have more background to build up my music and everything. Just it's good. That's really good. And I was very unbalanced when I had no family. I mean, I lived in my mother's house. After she died, it was a party house, and it was very unbalanced. So since 2013, things start getting much better.
When you think back on your entire career, I'm sure there are times, especially in New York, when you must have considered, at least, this life is so hard. Why did I choose this? Maybe just having a job is better. Did you ever consider not pursuing music as your life's passion?
Well, I couldn't I couldn't tell this about my New York period, because doing the daytime jobs and playing music, I was always, levitating towards music, obviously. That's why I felt depressed in the end of my New York days because I wasn't able to fully commit to music. And my choices were, based off, okay, I guess I go back to Poland because I will have opportunity to play music full time. That's why I decided to leave New York. And I guess that was a good decision. I had to do this because I was really pushed down by New York City. I was beat. I was depressed, and I couldn't take it anymore. And I think that was a good choice for me.
It's inspiring that, I mean, you went to New York, in pursuit of uh, studying and performing a style of music with a community of people that you didn't have access to before. But your greatest success came when you went home.
Exactly. I guess that was a destiny. As a European guy, I went back to Europe and I got the gig with European band, and it was meant to be like that. Also, I was very impatient when I was younger. I knew that I have to pay your dues to get to the certain point. That's why my praise started. God, I paid my dues. Come on, do something. And I paid my dues, and I had the opportunity and chance to join the Scorpions. And I tell you what, maintaining this gig and maintaining to stay in such a band takes lots of compromises, and you have to deal with lots of different obstacles, and you have to many times put your ego away and be just nice. Me as a bass player, it's easier because bass player in Scorpions, it's you know in the background.
It's not weather report.
It's not a weather report. So I enjoy that. I always enjoy that. I think people like playing with me because I do not overplay. I learned this with jazz players. Leave them some space to improvise. You don't have to be so busy. And thanks to great drummers like James and now Mickey D, it's very important to have a good drummer in the bass.
The most
with
important.
The bass, you know that it's all the pumping, the blood. We are the heart and the blood circulation of the band.
Indeed.
You're doing a great job. I was listening to you with Duff, and incredible, man. You're a groovy bass player and guitar player too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I play guitar too. Yeah, of course. And back at home, I have pretty much lots of time to create my own music. Recently, maybe after this podcast, we can add some links to my music.
Of course.
I had a chance to record some music with great friends of mine in Poland. Robert Cichoń is a great guitar player. Daryl Strauss, American guy who lives in LA, but he's married to Polish woman. And Artur Baczewski, another friend of mine from childhood, he also plays bass, very good bass, so I can play guitar. So sometimes we're having jam sessions in my home studio where I record live music. I also start learning how to play drums. So Arthur plays bass, Robert plays guitar, and I play drums. And playing drums made me a better bass player too.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Do you find that you are more critical of drummers than other people, other musicians, like guitar players or singers, because of your connection?
I'm a very strict about drummers. I can tell right away from the first few bars if I can play with a drummer or I just quit right away. So I'm very strict about this, and I really enjoy the good drummers. Recently, I got reconnected with Jeff Andrews. He's a guitar player who I knew from New York City. We're gigging a lot. He's with B-52s right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we were hanging out. I saw B-52s. I was so proud of John because he's one of not so many musicians who made it. I mean, I've met great drummers like Matt Flynn, who plays with Maroon 5. We played in New York City. Matt Johnson, who played with Jeff Buckley. So I appreciate great drummers because they just give you freedom to play better bass, and you don't have to do much, right? You just hang in the pocket and everything works very well.
And secretly, everyone on stage wants to be the drummer, really, right?
Yeah, well,
It's the kind of the coolest
well,
gig on
the,
stage. I love that. And this is something I touch on a bit on the podcast, is that of all the frustrating stages that, I every musician I've talked to, no one has had a cakewalk. Even people who met with success at a young age, you know, success doesn't excuse you from hardship, right? But there are a lot of things that cause us to consider, like, second guessing our choice. But you never know what is coming tomorrow. And I feel like your story embodies that.
yeah, I have a good tip for maybe younger musicians, because I went through those different periods of the ego. If you if you will have a chance to play with a famous band, my problem was that since, for example, I'm with Scorpion or with TSA, there's an excuse because I'm in a big band. It's an excuse to drink more, or to if you make a little bit more money, you feel like a king. You think you can afford this, you can afford that. Be careful of that, because it's a trap. And if you don't control this, you can end up completely being broke, even if you make lots of money, because then if your health goes down, excuse me, or something else, you're just spending money for stupid reasons. And I think the good tip would be keep your ego in control and try not to get too excited, and which is hard if you're not controlling yourself and if you don't know how to balance yourself. And that's the biggest lesson I learned also with Scorpions: being in balance, be cool. Don't get too excited. Don't use excuse that, because I made a fool of myself many times. I thought I'm with the Scorpions so I can act like a fucking asshole. That's not nice. So I went through this, and I can share this as a tip.
Not to mention, any gig can go away if you act the fool, uh, and that can either be you getting fired or you die.
Exactly. Exactly, that's what it is. And I do not afraid anymore. I know that things will happen if you think positive. You attract positive things. As a drunk Pavel, I was very negative, and I had a problem with positive thinking and attracting good things towards myself. Not anymore.
Well, I have to say, and it's the same way that I opened our conversation, that from the second we met, you have presented nothing but super positive energy toward me and everyone in the band. And I got to say thank you. We'll play our last show tomorrow. This episode won't come out for a couple weeks, but this has been one of the true pleasures of my life.
Thank you so much for having me here, and I hope some people will enjoy this. And please check out my music in the links. And thank you so much for inviting me.
Pavel, thank you, my man.
You are the man. Thank you.